Hello.
Hi there. Excited to be here.
Me too. This is very exciting.
I know. So we're here to do a podcast. It's Acappella. This is our very first podcast. We have a heart for seniors, and there is so much information out there. There's so many misconceptions, and there's so much confusion. We want to help build that bridge so that if people have questions or need some direction, we want to be there, and we want to be there to educate and help our seniors and our adult children of seniors, just to help with the maze of healthcare.
There's a lot of questions out there, and there's a lot of needs, especially for adult children that have no idea. So we'll get into more of that, I know, on an upcoming podcast as well. You just heard Jo Alch, RN. She is the owner and CEO of Acappella in Home Care. And I'm Krista Shockey. I'm the Director of Operations at Acappella. And Jo and I met probably 4 or 5 years ago at choir at First Baptist Church, Dallas. And we've been singing in choir together for years. And I had the joy to care for her dad for a little while last year, and fell in love with him, fell even more in love with Jo and Matt, her husband, and just such a blessing to be on the team for the past year. So it's just such a joy to be here.
Well, and joining the choir, I've always loved to sing. That's how the name Acappella came up. I was asked when I was looking for the name for a company, I was told use an A name. It'll be first in the phone book. This is 12 years ago when people used phone books. But I picked Acappella, and my brother and sister and I used to sing as children. We sang hymns, and we harmonized. And I always love harmony, and just kind of look at perfect harmony. I kind of compare that with perfect care. And just kind of bragging on Krista. Krista sings tenor and has an amazing voice. And she has a sister in choir and had a mother in choir at the time. And their voices just blended perfectly. And I thought, okay, she's going to fit right in with our company. So Krista's been great. She's our Director of Business Development, and has really just done an amazing job. When she first started, she did work with my dad for a few weeks, and my dad was put on hospice care, and just was going through a hard time. And I've been a hospice nurse I nursed for almost 25 years. But when you are the relative of a loved one, you put a different hat on, and it was very hard for me to see my dad decline. And Krista was so awesome because she gave me a daily report. She was able to get him to talk and open up about things he hadn't talked about in years. And just really helped him make that closure that I couldn't do. And so I'm just so grateful for that. But part of the reason we want to do this show is education. And our seniors are so important. They paved our streets. They taught us to read and write. They took care of us as children. They, have done so much. And so they deserve the same respect. We need to honor them and care for them. And a lot of times seniors are just forgotten. And so that's just my goal. My heart is for seniors, and my goal is to provide the very best care that we can for them. And I found in our business, if you provide the right care, the business will come. We have grown, and it's just because we have a team like Krista that when you're with a senior, you just get to know them. It's more than just caring for them or administering an injection or turning them or giving them water. It's really getting to know them and helping them in this journey at their end of life.
Well, our seniors have such amazing stories. And that's what I loved about being with your dad, Jack, and sorry, it'll probably make me emotional because I loved him, and he was kind of like a grandpa to me. So I'm sorry. But a big reason I loved being with him is that I got to learn about how he was a fighter pilot in the Korean War, and how he loved his college in Louisiana, and he just being able to learn all those stories. And our seniors have built the foundation of the America that we live in right now, and it's amazing. And they get so lost.
I know.
And it's just and one reason I love Acappella is it's your leadership is amazing, and I love working for you. But it's really being able to, it is above and beyond service. It's not just we get to care for people. It's we have it's our blessing to be able to care for people, and it's our duty to serve them well and to serve their families well. And I didn't realize how much I loved home care until I got to serve Jack. And so I'm just so thankful to be a part of just such a great opportunity to be a part of this company that puts God first and is why we're blessed. So it means a lot. And that's why I'm just so glad we get to have the opportunity to do this podcast as well, to educate people on the importance of serving our seniors. I mean, whether you see people anywhere, open the door for people, help them across the street, whatever it is, they paved the way for us. So I'm very passionate about them as well.
Well, and one thing I do remember with my dad, for several years, he had made a lot of poor decisions, and he was a good guy. But I hadn't seen him laugh in years. And one day, you were with him, and he just started cracking up, and I still see that. I have a snapshot in my memory of that, and it was just so precious. So let's talk about the pajama drive.
Oh, yes. Very exciting. So this is our 5th annual pajama drive. And over the past couple years, we've collected, I want to say, probably close to 2,000 pairs. Last year, we were able to bless 6 different low-income facilities and nursing homes, and seeing the joy on their faces, on the residents' faces, to be able to have a warm pair of pajamas during Christmas when they could possibly have nothing. If they come from the hospital to the nursing home, they might just have the gown on their back and nothing else. And there's a statistic, and I need to get the exact stats for it, but so many people that go into the nursing homes from hospitals don't have family to help care for them and provide those basic needs. So this is a huge blessing that we're able to do this, and it all started with your vision.
Well, and it makes me think about, I just have such a heart. When I was a little girl, I would get pajamas at Christmas for my grandmother, and I always looked forward to getting that new nightgown. And there are studies that show that wearing a new pair of pajamas to sleep, you sleep better, you feel better. And so what better way to make a senior feel better than a fresh new pair of pajamas at Christmas time? And we've collected so many, we've had to turn Pajamas for Seniors into a nonprofit, which is very exciting. And our goal is just to keep delivering pajamas at Christmas and year-round as that need, to fill that need.
Yeah, I'm excited about that, because even just the momentum and the just people being so involved and wanting to know more about it already, and getting the name, just getting Acappella out there, but also Pajamas for Seniors now it's just going to be so huge. And I know that God's going to bless that tremendously.
I know. It's exciting. So I want to talk about the history of Acappella.
Yes.
Just so I know we've talked about the name, and I was a hospice nurse for 7 years. And I did admissions, so I met with families and explained what we do. And in that, people have the misconception that when you're on hospice, Medicare provides a nurse around the clock for 6 months. And that's not the case. They do provide a great service, but it's more of a support service. So the round-the-clock care is really up to family, friends, or hiring somebody privately. So I really saw a need for an agency that really understood hospice care and took great care of the patient. And so I started 12 years ago. I started at my kitchen table. I had no money. I was the triage nurse. I was the marketer. I was the after hours on call. I did the billing and payroll. I did a little bit of everything.
You were a one-woman show.
I was a one-woman show. I made copies at Kinko's. I dropped things off at businesses, at hospitals, at home healths, at hospice companies. And anyway, I had a vision. I stuck with my vision, never compromised the patient care, and we've just grown and just keep adding just amazing people like you.
Oh, thank you.
And so I'm just so blessed. My husband works with us. My kids are involved as well. It's a family affair. And even our administrative staff, we all really treat each other like family. We start every morning with prayer. It's a non-denominational prayer, but it's amazing. Everybody holds hands, and we just do our best to bless our seniors, to take the best care possible, that no one gets injured, that we can just still be a light in a dark world. And those days we forget to pray makes
you can feel it.
You can feel it. So we just have an outstanding team.
It's a true blessing to be part of a team, and just like this one. And I've never been able to open the day with prayer, even in the midst of the day. If we're working on schedules or whatever it is, somebody's sick or something happens with a client right away, I mean, we can stop what we're doing immediately and lift them up, and it makes a huge difference. And that's what a big reason I think all of us love coming every day, is because we know that we're going to be lifted up and surrounded in prayer, and that a big part of the prayer is for the Lord to have a hedge of protection around all of us, so we can serve others, serve the Lord by serving others. So it's a huge, and I believe that's why we're blessed too, why the Lord's blessing us. So
I do too.
It's a blessing to be part of this. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can we stop?
That was good. song.
Welcome back. Thank you for letting us take a little break for a minute there. And I want to talk about what's in the news right now. There's a lot about fraud and neglect, abuse, especially financial fraud. We see this, we're private duty, so we step in after the fact. We had a patient, I've shared this before, that got a call. She lived at one of the communities, nice communities, got a call from Toys for Toddlers and gave this company $3,000 over the phone. So the family stepped in and decided to have round-the-clock care for her. And so we provided care for several years. She was wonderful. But it's so important to get the news out there that people are being scammed. In fact, there's so much fraud and abuse right now, and you have to be so careful. In fact, one of the members of our pajama board was scammed on Facebook, paid $500. He is a smart businessman with an MBA and paid $500 over the phone and then realized, I cannot believe I just did that. So it's easy for even us to be scammed.
Yes.
And imagine if you've got hearing loss and you're isolated, or
people with
just
dementia and
a
Alzheimer's.
little bit of confusion. So it's so important to be an advocate. Everyone needs an advocate. Because you do kind of get lost and you can be taken advantage of. So just talking about kind of the fraud and abuse, what is your...
I just think it's the saddest thing when people feel that they can do that to our seniors who have, again, paved the way for where we are right now. And just knowing, just being able to, for example, with Jack, your dad, just to think if that would have happened to him, I would have been extremely furious. Just being able to identify an advocate for every single person that's in a facility, that's in a community, if they're not at home receiving private duty care, if they're whatever the situation is, every one of our loved ones, they need to be protected and taken care of and looked out for. It's just, there's a gap that needs to be filled, and Lord willing, this will help start filling that gap. The education that we're going to provide for families and for people that maybe are lost and don't have any idea, where do I start to protect my loved ones? What do we need to do with that? So that's just a huge opportunity for education and for people and family members, no matter what differences are, no matter what bridges have been built or whatever it is during the years, our seniors and our elderly loved ones need to be protected. So I know there was a situation as well with your mother before you moved her here.
Yeah, she was in Louisiana, wanted to be near her husband, and we saw some stuff going on at her community, but our hands were a little tied. My sister one time brought 3 new dresses for my mother to wear, and they were gone the next day. And so we think someone on staff may have taken them. It's so sad. And you want to make sure if you've got a loved one in the community that everything is labeled. You don't have anything of value, no valuable jewelry or really even cash you don't want to keep. But my mother's situation, she was neglected. We paid for a caregiver to go out twice a week just because we were long distance, 500 miles away. And our caregiver would find her on the floor across the building and asleep, in a fetal position on the floor. And my mother was the most beautiful, talented. She was a singer too, and was so good to everybody, just a very kind person. And to see her being treated like she just didn't matter. And my sister and I took turns going out every weekend to check on her. And we found that she was not being medicated properly. She was on Valium and a pain medication for just severe arthritis, and they were switching those out with Tylenol or Advil or something.
Oh, my word.
And we find out later that they were selling the drugs on the street. So they were trading out my mother's medicine for, phony medicine. So we got her here. It was a blessing to get her here, to get her meds under control. Now she's happy. She's gained weight. She's eating. She's smiling. Her pain is under control. Her anxiety is under control. And that's just a perfect example of how important it is to have an advocate and have somebody looking out for you. And I'm a healthcare professional. I'm knowledgeable. I know the system. And even myself and my sister, who's also an RN, were both taken advantage of. And people work the system. If you don't have somebody there, I think of the example, we had a gentleman in our choir. He was single. He wasn't even a senior, but he was single, probably 45.
Yes, metastatic brain cancer.
Brain cancer, and he had no money, no family. He had a sister, but she worked and had kids. And anyway, he was moved to a nursing home and was just getting horrible care. And so the choir rallied around him, and we all took turns being with him and checking on him, and it made a difference. He was on hospice, and so we did, with our help, being advocates, he had a better quality of life in that final week. So if something doesn't look right, it probably isn't. So it's important to ask questions. It's important to ask, what meds is my loved one getting? How often are they getting a nurse to check on them? What has the doctor said? It's so important to communicate and to ask questions. And on further, in future podcasts, we're going to talk about specific questions related to choosing a rehab or choosing an independent living versus assisted living. What about Medicare home health? What about Medicare hospice? What about Medicaid? What are your choices when you have no money? And how important it is to do that homework prior to a catastrophic situation. So there's just a lot of things we want to talk about and educate. We're always available by phone, by email. We have a website. It's acappellainhomecare.com. You can always email us, pick up the phone. We are busy, but we will do our best to call you back as quickly as we can and give you some direction. Yes, we're not a rehab hospital, but we can give you recommendations on questions to ask, or who we feel would provide great care for you. And we're sincere on that. We want the best. There is also a site on the internet. It's medicare.gov, and they have a compare site. You can compare home health to hospices. Just things that are important to seniors. We're all blind. And, when somebody falls and breaks a hip, or they've got pneumonia and they've got to be in the hospital and they're going to need care where they were independent prior. There's a big maze out there, and we want to help with those questions and bridge that gap.
And we're always available to answer those questions. Our phones are answered 24/7. We have a geriatric care manager on staff, an assistant director of nursing. His name's Tom Ives. He's also an RN. We have amazing people on staff that can absolutely, guide to the right direction. Our main focus is education and empowering people and families to be able to make educated decisions on the care of their loved ones. So regardless of what the question is, we're always available to answer those questions. And I feel like, too, the more that we advocate and the more we ask questions about our loved ones, for example, our friend from choir, his care increased, the level of his care increased, the more people that were checking on him. So just being able to ring that bell if there was anything that seemed off, or, we wanted to check and make sure how often he is being cared for. How often are they coming in, the aides coming in, checking on him, not just for meals and things like that, but there has to be, and I understand too, staffing in different facilities can be limited, and there's a X number of patients to one person. I understand all those things. It's not an excuse.
It's not an excuse. And the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Absolutely.
And so it's important. It is important to have that advocate,
because that's going to increase visibility in all of these things. So I think a lot of times, so many people, so many facilities and, other places are just kind of used to not having family members be the squeaky wheel, if you will. And so the more we're able to do that and encourage people to do that, it's not a nuisance. It's not, an inconvenience to the staff or anybody. It's needed to make sure care is absolutely 100% what's needed for the patient, for the client. And I know too, there is a trial going on right now in Dallas. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that's another great newsworthy story. There was a hospice in Dallas that started a few years ago and was growing by leaps and bounds, bigger than the other hospices that knew the doctors, that knew the community, and they were shut down. The FBI got involved. They were basically medicating patients to euthanize them. Once they got to a certain level where they needed that additional care, they would give high doses of morphine, high doses of lorazepam, kind of a cocktail to try to expedite, even though they were on hospice.
Yeah.
So 2 nurses are on trial right now, and they're trying to defend themselves. But in my opinion on this, they knew what they were doing. Every nurse has a license to protect, and we have a responsibility to those patients. And so those nurses really should be held
responsible. Absolutely.
Most definitely.
Well, and hopefully, I hate that this has to happen to any clients, to any families, but hopefully, Lord willing, it'll open the eyes of the families and the clients to be able to identify if they're feeling like anything's wonky or just not 100% on the up and up. And I know we'll probably revisit that news story a little bit more in future podcasts as well. But I know that's the time for today. And we want to encourage everybody to go to social media. Please comment on what you would love to hear, any topics that you would love Jo to discuss. She is a wealth of knowledge and just amazing. So let us know what you want to hear, and we will be happy to add that to the roster. So until next time, we're so excited. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.